Okay, so we're going to be doing LeetCode question 278, first bad version. So what this question is asking is, suppose you have n versions, right? So starting from 1 from n, and you want to find out the first bad one, which causes all the following ones to be bad right after. So you want to find the first bad one. You're given an API called isBadVersion, which returns whether that version is bad or if that version is good. And we want to implement a function to find the first bad one. We want to minimize the number of the calls to the API. So this question is a little bit straightforward, right? We have an API. We're going to go and just run the numbers starting from 1 all the way to n, and we want to find the first bad version, so the first instance that version is bad. However, we need to minimize the amount of calls, so we can't just do a for loop and do 1, 2, 3 all the way to n, right? Because that would take a long time to do. We want to minimize the calls, so we need to find a way where we do not call the API as often as we said originally. And a really nice way of doing that is using this method called the two-pointer method, right? So what a two-pointer method is you create 2 pointers, start, right, which we're going to start at 1, and end, which end, which is going to be the length, right? But we don't really need the length because we have the length right here, n, in our argument, right? So n is how many times or how many versions we have in total. So we'll just set n equal to n. So now as we have our 2 pointers, right, we are going to create a while loop, which is a part of the 2-pointer process, which is when you do while start is less than or equal to n, basically continue looping, right? Beautiful. So now as we have our 2-pointer method kind of mapped out and planned, what's going to happen here? Well, we are going to go and grab the middle of we're going to grab the middle value with the 2 pointers we have. So what I mean is, for instance, in this example, right, n is equal to 5 and bad is 4, right? So our output is 4, meaning, okay, the first instance that we have the bad version, which is true, right, it's 4, so we return 4. So instead of starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, we're actually going to go and grab the middle number, right, and start at 3, and depending on the output, we're going to move left or right. And that output is determined by conditions and if statements and so on. So how do we grab the middle number? Well, what we could do is basically add start and n and just divide it by 2. So what we're going to do is create a variable, we'll just name it current, right? And we will go and just add start plus n. And then we want a whole number, right? Not a decimal, so we do 2 dashes to make sure we get a whole number. And now we have our middle value. So this will be our middle value, right, or our current. And what we're going to do with this is we are going to then create our conditions, right, our if statements to see if we meet these requirements. So we're going to check if is bad version at index current, and we need to see if it's equal to true or if it's equal to false, right? And for false, we can just write else. So the conditions, condition for true, and this will be condition for false, right? Beautiful. Okay. So we have the condition for true, right? So if it's true, what this means is, okay, well, we know that we are in a bad version right now, right? We're trying to find the first. So for instance, right, let's say if we're running through this while loop, and if bad version is equal to true, and let's say it's equal to 5, it's true. Well, there's a number 4, like 4 is also true. So we're going to go back 1. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is basically grab n and set this equal to current minus 1, right? So we're going to grab n here, and we're going to go back 1, right? And then vice versa, right? If it is equal to false, right, that means we need to continue moving forward to get to true. So what we do is do start equals current plus 1, right? Beautiful. And what's going to happen here is we are going to return start. Start is going to give us our answer, and the reason it's going to give us our answer is because, taking a look at this example, right, to try to make things easier, we are in a while loop, right? So while start is less than or equal to n, continue doing all this code, right? There will be an instance when start will equal false, right? So, when we're at that false condition, we basically want to continue moving forward and end slowly, one by one by one, until start is equal to true. Once start is equal to true, that means that has to be the first bad version, because start in the beginning is false, right? So if we're at false, basically meaning this is not a bad version, right? And we're adding 1 to start each loop in the while loop, right, by 1, then starting from, let's say if this bad version is 1 is false. Let's say 2 now. 2 is false. 3 is false. 4 is true. Okay, so now we're at true, right? Start is not false anymore, it is true. When it reaches that point, this while loop here, when start is less than or equal to n, will not be true anymore, because start will be greater than n at that point. Once it's greater than, the loop stops, and all you have to do is return start, and start will automatically be the first instance of the bad version. So the way we achieve this output is by using the 2-pointer method, right, and returning one of the pointers. In this instance, that pointer would be start. So let's give it a run to make sure everything is working. Oh, we're missing double equal sign. Oh. Beautiful. So we just got accepted. Let's submit and make sure we pass all our test cases, and we do beautifully. Awesome. So just to recap, the question is basically telling you to not loop through the entirety of n, and instead use a particular method to limit the amount of calls of the API, which is a very good common practice. You don't want to be having a long big O notation situation or run complexity, and in this case we use the 2-pointer method to basically cut that time in half, and we do that by creating 2 pointers, one starting the beginning, one starting from the end, start being the beginning and end being the end, and we grab the middle number of that, and we grab the middle by adding start and end and dividing it by 2 and making sure you get a whole number instead of a decimal, right? And we do this running a while loop. So while start is less than or equal to n, continue updating the values current, right, and end and start until that loop is broken. And we constantly are updating start and end and current until the loop finally breaks, and we return start, because start is basically going to change once we finally break this condition, and start will change into the first instance of the bad version.